Alrighty, we are back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. It's Location Weekly. It's episode number 543. We're recording on November the 16th, and the lovely Aubriana is here. How are you?
I'm good. I am, just like moving along. I can't believe that the holidays are almost here. It's crazy. Pulled out a couple of Christmas decorations last night with my kids. They're very excited about that. But it's like such a busy and crazy time of year, and just trying to get everything done work wise before we close up Q4. But I mean, moving along. I'm feeling grateful, which I should be since Thanksgiving is upon us, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely. I haven't quite got into the kind of holiday Christmas spirit yet. Although as I was driving into the office this morning, they were on the news, listening to the news. They had just brought the giant Christmas tree into the city hall area that's going to be put up tonight. It's a 60-foot tree.
Wow.
So we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, I guess also just like being in New York now for the holidays, like I'm very excited to do
Rockefeller
all,
Center.
yeah, like
Yeah.
just experience all that magic.
Yeah.
It'll be a new fun family thing for us to do, and not as like tourists, but as, hey, we actually live here now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a good show for you. The usual four stories, a range of sort of retail and tech things to talk about. So I'll let Aubriana start us off.
All right, let's kick it off with a story from Google. And they are gaining advantage in yet another sector with their Android Automotive Operating System, or AAOS. So this is being adopted by several OEMs. And what I mean by that is like there's a default inclusion of Google Maps that the platform gives like these already, popular service. So many people use Google Maps, even more strategic advantage. So they have they announced, at their developer conference earlier this year that the Android for Cars app library, it's available as part of what they call Jetpack. So that is supporting Android automotive operating system. So any of the OEMs, any of the car manufacturers that are incorporating this and opening this up, and have a vehicle that has that infotainment system that has like this open capability with it, they can just install their app onto their vehicle's infotainment system. And the Android Auto also lets users connect their phone, as long as it's Android 5.0 or higher, to a compatible vehicle, so they can display like their optimized version of Google Maps, how they have it set up, their preferences and everything directly on the console. So this is really, this is good, I think, in the aspect of just where we're moving with vehicles. I remember, so many years ago, one of my very first early on jobs was working at a Cadillac and Hummer dealership. And this was back when they had, the navigation was on a disc and you had to get an updated disc. And it was just like a lot of, it was a lot of work, and nothing was ever updated. You didn't have anything that was crowdsourced in terms of like traffic or anything like that. And we've come so far, such a long way. But I think that this is really great because having your preferences and being able to take them wherever you go. I notice a lot of times this is available, and the rental cars, like if I rent a car, it's available and it's really nice. I drive an older car, so I don't have this, fancy infotainment system, but it's great just to be able to plug in and everything's right there. And it's also how you set it up. So I think that this is obviously a very strong move. And what I also think is interesting, not sure that this had anything to do with the decisions or the direction they're going, but Tim Garcia, who is now at Google for Google Maps, who came from here previously. And, obviously they had a lot of integration and worked a lot with different car manufacturing companies, as I believe they were purchased by one or
Yeah.
acquired
I
by
think
one, or
they're
how they
owned by
worked, right?
BMW and Daimler.
Daimler, maybe. Yeah. So it's really interesting. So shout out to Tim, friend and fellow LBMA member there. But
Yeah.
this obviously makes a lot of sense. I typically use Waze and not Google Maps. I just like really enjoy that more. But you obviously have the freedom and flexibility to plug in whichever you use. And I think that this is a very natural progression for Google. It's very consumer friendly. It's what all of us want. We want to be able to have the same capabilities, the same functionality that we have on our phones in our cars without having to reset anything or do anything special. So I think the idea here is right. We're not changing consumer behavior. We're just bringing it to life on a little bit bigger of a screen when you enter into that vehicle. So I think this is a good win. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good move for them. I think it's playing a little bit of catch up as well. I mean, there's a lot of other players in the car navigation, vehicle software space. Probably the biggest, a name that we don't talk about much these days, but BlackBerry, Canadian company here. Once the dominant mobile device for lots of people. Most of their business now is in car navigation software through a division called QNX, and so they've got partnerships with GM and Mercedes-Benz and Toyota and so on that they're powering sort of the underlying navigation systems that are going on there. So I think it's good for Google to kind of be in this space. As from a personal perspective, I'm an Apple ecosystem guy. I have an iPhone and so on. So, when I get in my car, it's all about CarPlay and kind of plugging into that. I also use Waze a lot, which obviously is part of the Google, empire and underneath the Alphabet, infrastructure there. But yeah, I think it's what I like about it is that when it comes to maps and real-time updates and traffic data and those kinds of things, Google's kind of got that market locked up, right? It's so I think if they can find a way to kind of parlay that into the OEM car space, it's a good move for them. And I think from a user and consumer perspective, I think the portability that you talked about of just having my settings, having my sort of the way I want to use it, sort of be portable and carry over to wherever I go. I think that makes sense too. So yeah, I kind of like it. It's good. All right. On to our second story then. Giant Food, the big grocery retailer, is piloting a new feature in collaboration with a company called Flash Food. So this is a digital marketplace that provides customers access to heavily discounted food, in particular around perishable items. So we're talking about, fruit and meat and dairy and, bakery items and things that, that expire or go bad. And so they're testing out this sort of mobile app type of framework where, they can push out deals and offers on things that are, going soon to be expired, and you can kind of come in and get these discounts, and at the same time they don't have to throw it out, right? So it kind of serves two purposes, right? It's making a little bit of revenue on stuff that they otherwise would be throwing out, giving consumers sort of a mobile real-time visibility into what's available and access to that around them. They're piloting this right now at I think 3 stores, in 2 in Maryland and 1 in Virginia. And yeah, it's I don't have a lot more to say about it, but it's pretty straightforward, but I like it. It's anything like this that to me is like keeping things out of the garbage or the recycling bin, generating a little incremental revenue for the retailer and helping people find stuff that they want or can use that night or in the next day or two, at a lower cost. I think it's win-win-win. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I think this is a great story. Giant is something, it is up here in the Northeast. I know that my mother-in-law in Pennsylvania shops there a lot, and it's great to see this. I do think there's so much food that goes to waste, and not only is it just sad because there's so many people who really do need food, but I do love the idea that it is like, okay, you can get something discounted. Perhaps I just need something for today, for dinner tonight, and I can use it right away, and I don't have to pay full price. And perhaps it helps people who need that extra little bit of savings as well. And even here, and I'll speak for the US, but even here in the US, I know that there are kids who don't get a lot to eat perhaps on the weekends when they're not getting food from school, or they just don't get the access to the type of sustainability that they really need, from a nourishment perspective. And I think that this is wonderful, kind of a step in that direction, as well as, I know there's lots of supermarkets who perhaps, donate or just give their food away if it's going to go bad or expire at a certain point in time. But I think that this is great. Just making it, reducing that waste, making it good for the community, helping people maybe who need that extra savings, and good for the environment as well. So like the story.
Yeah, and the fact that they're doing it with an app, so you can kind of like just search to see what's there. You buy it directly through the app, pay for it through the app, and like your order's placed, and you just go and pick it up too, right? So there's that convenience factor too of I don't have to, like at my local grocery store, they don't have this obviously, but there's always this kind of like moving cart on wheels that just has all the sort of perishable items that they're discounted down 50% or whatever. But you got to go in there and see what's there and see if it's something you want or not, right? And whereas this, like I can just search, see what's around me, near me, maybe make a decision on what I'm making for dinner that night based on that, and just have it all bought, paid for, and just go pick it up. So I like it.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so speaking of apps, let's go to another app now from a retailer, Lowe's. They are launching a room scanning tool in their app, and the feature is going to be called Measure Your Space. So this will provide room scanning capabilities, measurement and estimate tool. So, this is part of what they're calling spatial commerce. So it's part of their vision for what they want to kind of merge into, looking to launch Q1 of next year. And they're going to make this only available via iOS, which I find a little bit interesting. So iPhone 12 Pro Max, iPhone 13 Pro Max, and iPad Pro users. So I don't have any of those new iPhones actually, so I would be not be able to use this. But they're starting with flooring, which they say is like one of the most popular home improvement projects that happen. Roughly 5 million people a year take on flooring, carpeting, paneling projects. So they want to start with this, kind of dip their toe in the water, and then they want to expand to things like visualizing those floor changes in real time, and then also working with other smartphones and devices, which I find this very interesting that they decided to roll out only with iOS, only the newer versions. Obviously, possibly from a share of wallet, those are the consumers who spend the most that have those devices. But also, I think they're just really missing out on a big piece of the market. But they're going to, make this available. So you can just access the feature there's like a Measure Your Space beta button that's going to be available there. And then you can just scan the room and get this like generated floor plan that you can see, get the room measurements, personalized estimates, all of those things. But what they talk more about at a higher level is just continuing to invest in these emerging technologies like LiDAR, AI, mixed reality. We're seeing a lot of companies do this. We've seen Amazon do this with visualize this in your room, picture this in your room. We've seen IKEA do things like this, like so you can kind of get the idea of shape, size, does it fit with your other decor? And I think this is just a natural progression of that. I am surprised that this type of feature and offering does not already exist. Home improvement stores like Lowe's and Home Depot get a very generous amount of their revenue from home improvements, whether that's through their like DIY, stuff, or through, general contractors coming in and purchasing things there, as well as, their specific like consultation where you can go through them and just, build everything out and have somebody visualize it there in the store. So I'm surprised it's taken them so long to get here, but I think that this is definitely a natural progression, what they should be investing in.
Yeah, so the fact that it's only iOS, I think is interesting. For a couple of reasons. So first of all, the latest iOS devices, the ones that you mentioned, are currently the only devices that support lidar, right? So that's, you can't do this without the lidar, which is light detection and ranging technology. Very big topic these days in the world of mapping and remote sensing. It's very popular in, a lot of, archaeology now is all using lidar, where they go and they scan like the desert, and they see things underneath using, sort of, it uses lasers and bouncing light off things and kind of measuring, from that perspective. So the new iPhones have lidar sensing capabilities built into them. That's one of the things that came out in the latest iPhones, and so I'm not sure where the Google devices are on that, but I don't think that they've got that at the moment. It's also becoming something that's very big in augmented reality use cases, and kind of linking the lidar pieces to AR. So I think this makes sense, and I think I think we're going to see a lot more, applications going into the next year that are able to leverage that sensing capability, right? So, but Lowe's has always been at the forefront of pushing these kinds of technologies, either in their app, that you can use in store, or while you're at home to visualize paint colors, or visualize, in this case, your floor, and measure that out and get understand what it's going to look like. So I think it makes sense, right? People, if you're doing home improvements, or you're a contractor or whatever, you these are useful tools to you to sort of make your life a bit easier, right? And at the end of the day, if you can then convert that through the app into purchasing the materials that you need, then all the better for companies like Lowe's. So yeah, I think it's good. All right, on to our final story now. So Amazon, and in particular their Alexa platform, is doing some interesting things. So they've got a platform called Alexa Smart Properties, and so this is a division of, I guess, Alexa that kind of goes in and works with different building owner operators, and in particular, they're running a project right now in a series of hospitals and assisted living homes. And so the idea is that, let's say you're a senior citizen, you're a resident in a home, or you're a patient in a hospital, you have an Alexa, on your bedside table. That's, every room, every bed, in these properties is equipped with, this kind of thing. And it's all about making connections and communication easier, both for staff as well as for the residents and their families. So, think about just being able to reach out to your loved one, from home, talk to them over, over the Alexa device, or them being able to call for something they need, like instead of having the old buttons that we have in the hospital, I need help right now, you can call out using voice commands, and things like that. So there's a lot, I think, of value in this type of service. Being able to reach out to family and friends, being able to, just stay connected with people. And then from a staff perspective too, they're using this to make announcements, across the entire home or hospital or property, broadcast type of announcements, check in on people, send direct audio messages like voicemail, to individual things, prompt people to take their medication, all kinds of things like that can be done. And not necessarily having to do everything sort of in person physically, which, maybe there's a downside to that too. Having that, sort of personal care, I think, is important. But if you can sort of facilitate more, a higher frequency of engagement and communication and connectivity in the home and out of the home, or in the hospital or out of the hospital with family and friends and so on, then I really like this. And I see a huge market for this type of application, and in particular for something like Amazon Alexa. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so personally, I have like this love-hate relationship with those devices, which I won't say the name because then it will, start chiming in here. But I think that this application is wonderful. And as someone, with grandparents who are really at that age that they should be going into assisted living homes, very much so, but are, very stubborn and don't want to do that. I think that even at home in their household, this would be really, really beneficial. Just being able to set up those reminders for them and and just make sure, like you said, remember to take your medicine at specific times and remember certain appointments, and just those types of reminders that they need would be really, really helpful. I do find it really, it's like kind of bittersweet, because it is heartbreaking to see the, people that you love around you aging, but it's really nice to know that there's technology that can help them. But occasionally my grandmother will call me and ask me again, like, what's the phone's name? What do I need to say again? I'm like, it's Siri, Nina. And so I had like taped even to the back of her iPhone, this is what you need to say.
Yeah.
Hold down this button. When you see the bubble, say this. Just say, Siri, call up Brianna, and I'll help you. So it's really funny, but I think that something simple where they can ask questions and those types of tools, are amazing. And so being able to continue to offer these types of services, we talk about these types of things, whether it's helping track people with dementia, through just their sneakers or soles of their sneakers, and little things like this it's such a great implication of technology, and one of those things that is very valuable. And I think it also gives back to the dignity of the aging community, right? Where they don't feel like they maybe need to be taken care of all the time, but now they just have simple reminders, and it's like nobody has to tell them that face to face. So perhaps it gives them a little bit, more of confidence and feeling less burdensome. So I think that that's a win-win here.
Love it. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show for this week. 4 stories. Alexa helping out as it does, and a bunch of retail app announcements there, and good stuff from Google too, moving into OEM automotive navigation. So thank you for listening and watching, everybody. This has been episode number 543 of Location Weekly. Brianna, have a great rest of your week. Everybody else, you too. And we'll see you next week.